Opinion: the case against Trump's company is bogus. Donald Trump spars with the judge during testimony in civil fraud trial. CNN: in mid-1950s, New York business corruption was ripe, and the mafia families were on the rise. Jacob Javits, who was the New York State Attorney General at the time, pushes the state legislature to create a law that would give his office a sweeping power to identify and go after repeated fraudsters. From that request, Executive Law 63 was born. Today, the executive law is the counterpiece of the current New York Attorney General Letitia James case against the former President Donald Trump. To ignore the injustice of the law as applied to Trump is to welcome its unfair application to us all. James is attempting to use the executive law against Trump in the way it's never been used before, making the case that he defrauded certain financial institutions despite those institutions having actually profited from doing deals with him. That makes little sense, illustrating the law's potential for lawful justice, especially in the hands of the highly motivated Attorney General. Trump was opposed. Trump was supposed to testify once again on Monday after appearing on the witness stand last month, but he said online late Sunday that he would not be testifying after all. On Tuesday, Trump's defense rested its case. James' case argues that the financial statements that Trump submitted to various lending institutions were fraudulent because they exaggerated the value of his real estate holdings. That sounds bad, but what the AG doesn't alleges is that any of those lenders complained about Trump's valuations or that his valuations violated those lenders' rules or even that Trump default on any of the loans he received. He hasn't. Can someone be sued by the government for fraud from if the supposedly fraudulent conduct hasn't harmed anyone? Under the executive law, yes, Trump's case proves it. The commercial consequences of the law are disturbingly obvious and potentially devastating. If the individual puts two properties up for sale on at double the value as assessed by the third party operators, operators could the AG go after that seller for repeated fraud under the executive law, despite the buyers happily paying the asking prices. Apparently, what about the deli owner claiming in ads to have the best sandwiches in the world? Could the AG go after that owner for fraud even though customers have only praised and never complained about the quality of those sandwiches? In theory, yes. And does anything in the law allowing the court to rein in the AG for overreaching? Far from it. New York courts have ruled that the AG's power to act under the executive law is basically immune from questioning. Following the guidance of those courts, presiding New York State Supreme Court Justice Arthur Engoron ruled in favor of James in September, finding that Trump had violated the executive law in allowing trial to proceed on the issue of damages. Elgoron also ruled that disgorgement, the remedy sought by the Attorney General, which compels the individual to return illegally made profit, is inequitable in nature. mandating that the trial be a bench trial, one that the judge alone decides. That ruling makes clear how the executive law allows the court to deny the accused individual their constitutional right to the jury trial. Equitable disgorgement usually involves the prop- ill-gotten profit in the insurance scam, for example, in which an individual tricks another into paying premiums for the non-existent policy. Disgorgement would require the scammer to pay back whatever profits they illegally collected from the victim. That kind of straightforward calculation might be appropriate for the judge to decide alone. But there are no victims in Trump's case, and therefore no ill-gotten profit. So when James asked that the estimated $250 million be disgorged from Trump, what she's really seeking is a massive penalty, not a specified, equitable remedy pegged to the victim's suffering, but a kind of unspecified and punitive money damages typically left for juries to decide. Instead of a jury, however, Trump gets Al Gore, who isn't sympathetic to the free market economic principles underlying his defense. In his September ruling, Al Gore ridiculed Trump for essentially arguing that value is inherently subjective, but value is often subjective, particularly in the real estate market. Al Gore's decision obscures this point by mainly citing cases dealing with tax assessment challenges, not decisions implicating contracting business and entitles like the ones at issue in the Trump's case. Agor's similarly mocked Trump for the arguing that no sophisticated counterparty would have considered the financial statement and other information provided by Trump as material to extend the credit without doing their own due diligence. But Trump's argument makes business sense. A bank's ultimate decision to lend is based on its own self-informed valuation, not the borrower's. These points have played out through evidence presented at trial. During a full day of testimony just after Thanksgiving, an executive of one of the Trump's lenders confirmed that there was nothing unusual about Trump's inflated valuations, that the bank had done its own due diligence and determined that Trump's assets were less valuable than he claimed, but decided to loan Trump money anyway. Individuals and corporations were entitled to value things as they please and to enter into contract accordingly. But under the executive law, the AG and the court are free to interfere with and even punish that conduct. If all that isn't bad enough, the punishment the Attorney General can seek for supposed fraud under the executive law isn't limited to life-altering disgorgement. The AG can also strip the accused party of each license to do business in New York, as James has done to Trump. The move in on hold while the decision is appealed. Trump's case illustrated why none of us should want the government to have the power that it does under the executive law. That's not to say that Trump didn't poop up the value of his real estate holdings. He surely did. But that's not a reason to ignore that the executive law allows the government unrestricted and unconstitutional power to devastate individuals' livelihood for puffery in their private business dealings with ultimately satisfied customers. If that behavior is punishable as fraud, Trump will suffer for it. But many good and hard-working people might suffer for it as well.